All right, let's jump right into this explainer. If you've ever felt like your lived experience completely clashes with the official record, trust me, you are definitely not alone. Today we're going to decode a fascinating and often invisible 7-step cycle from our source documents. We are tracing the exact structural framework of how massive institutions maintain control over our reality, from that initial feeling of dissonance all the way to systemic reclamation.
So what happens when your memory and the system's memory diverge? It's a really provocative question, because the answer reveals exactly whose version of reality becomes real in practice. When a person's lived experience collides with a massive bureaucracy, it's not just a disagreement, it's a structural conflict. And understanding that conflict is absolutely crucial to understanding how systemic power really works. Think of it like this. There is a massive fundamental mismatch here. Human experience is a living, breathing narrative. It's fluid, it's contextual, it's emotional. The system, though, it treats memory purely as static evidence. It's fixed, highly procedural, and totally stripped of context. A system doesn't remember how you felt, it remembers a timestamp and a case code. And when these two types of memory collide, the system almost always wins. To break this all down, we're going to move through our 7-step framework divided into these 6 clear phases. The memory mismatch, legitimation and disqualification, reactive mediation, system failure and precedent, how systems reclaim power, and finally, breaking the cycle.
So let's get right into Section 1, the memory mismatch, and Step 1, which is dissonance.
We all remember the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Just think about how your personal memory of that time, maybe the fear, the isolation, a job loss, rarely matched up perfectly with the rigid government case counts or the polarized media narratives. That mismatch creates serious friction. Our documents define this as dissonance, the very first step in our cycle where personal truth and institutional truth hit a brick wall.
Which brings us to Section 2, legitimation and disqualification, making up Phase 1 of our setup, Steps 2 and 3.
When that brick wall hits, you'd think the system would investigate, right? No way. Step 2 is where the system just legitimizes itself. It declares its own paperwork as the absolute objective truth. The institution insists its processes are flawless, essentially overriding the friction of the human experience without actually fixing anything. It's essentially a bureaucratic magic trick.
And then comes Step 3, disqualification. This is where the institution actually weaponizes its dominance to erase the dissenting human narrative entirely. The system doesn't just ignore you, it actively invalidates you. Suddenly, your completely valid complaints are reclassified as just noise or even delusion. You are literally stripped of your legitimacy.
To put this into perspective, look at the Shane Lozenich case, detailed in our sources. You have a citizen trying to report real, documented vulnerabilities tied to a massive state data breach. How does the system respond? They didn't investigate the tech. They literally rewrote the citizen's solid evidence as a symptom of psychiatric instability. Unbelievable, right? The threat is totally neutralized by turning a structural complaint into a clinical diagnosis.
Once the human narrative is thrown out, we hit Section 3, reactive mediation. This is Phase 2, the suppression phase, or Step 4.
Step 4 is all about suppression. The institution starts deploying temporary defensive workarounds just to broker peace for the moment. In the legal examples from our sources, this looks like overnight bookings, tactical containments, or constantly rotating public defenders. They're basically procedural band-aids. The system engages minimally, just to quiet the immediate turbulence, completely avoiding the actual root constitutional flaws.
But, band-aids fall off eventually. And that leads directly to Section 4, system failure and precedent, kicking off Phase 3, the collapse, which covers Steps 5 and 6.
Step 5 is the failure mode. This is a second, much more severe kind of dissonance. The system literally starts to fracture under the weight of its own false records and reactive band-aids. The incoherence just piles up. Our documents show subjects getting trapped in these absolutely wild administrative loops, like a 4-year continuous competency loop, filled with endless scheduled hearings and delays, but zero actual due process. The system is quite literally collapsing under its own weight.
Right before the wheels completely fall off, Step 6 kicks in. A precedent is established. Think of precedent as an anchor, a crucial historical memory of how things were actually supposed to be organized. For a subject, it usually means pointing to clear constitutional violations, a record of what the system was obligated to provide but completely failed to do. It's a reminder of the rules that existed before the system's legitimation process just steamrolled over them.
Now we arrive at Section 5, How Systems Reclaim Power, exploring Phase 4, the twist resolution for Step 7. And buckle up, because there's a big twist in how this all resolves.
You hear the word reclamation and probably think, awesome, the underdog wins. Actually, no. The system is the one doing the reclaiming to guarantee its own survival. It does this using 4 really specific tactics. It might co-opt the language of the dissenters or institutionalize radical ideas into incredibly slow-moving committees. It might even commodify the rebellion to sell it back to the public, or just rewrite the narrative entirely to frame its own massive failures as a quote-unquote necessary test.
It's kind of brilliant in a dark way. The system swallows a massive constitutional crisis and neatly packages it into a quiet, closed administrative file. Instead of owning up to unlawful detentions or data breaches, it neutralizes them, dismissing cases without prejudice, handing out standard financial settlements, or labeling a subject as having restored competency. The messy, dangerous threat is absorbed entirely into clean, unassailable paperwork.
And it pulls this off through pure bureaucratic smoke and mirrors. It hides its real decisions behind a public-facing illusion. For example, our sources show this insane instance where a state public portal claims a case is completely archived, while secretly the hidden county-level machinery continues to actively process the subject with monthly hearings. It gives the public a flawless illusion of resolution, while the machine just keeps right on churning in the dark.
Okay, let's jump into our final section, breaking the cycle. If the system always absorbs the threat, can the individual ever truly reclaim their power?
According to the framework, if a subject actually wants to reclaim their narrative, they have to step completely outside the institution's feedback loop. You literally cannot use the system's tools to beat the system in a standard way. You have to subvert them. The documents point to an example called the Democracy Archive, a meticulous effort by a subject to archive the institution's own contradictory data, using the system's official records against it to expose its hidden flawed architecture from the outside.
This brings us to a quote that is absolutely the core of our explainer today. Whoever controls the memory controls the meaning. Whoever controls the meaning controls the system. It's a heavy reminder that narrative dominance is the ultimate form of systemic power. If a system controls the archived memory, it controls the meaning of what happened, and thereby maintains total control over the whole shebang.
So, as you go out into the world, watching massive institutions make changes or announce high-profile legal resolutions, I really want you to ask yourself one lingering question. When a powerful institution announces a fix, are they actually solving the underlying problem, or have they simply hit step 7 and completely absorbed the threat?